Okay, so boys and girls, you should be at your seats sitting quietly at a level 0, and you should all have these papers in front of you. Now, you are going to get ready to read with your pencil and answer some questions. So, it's really important that you are focusing, paying attention, so you can do really well on the question part. So, let's go ahead and turn to the part that says Sneaky Snake, okay? And let's read with our pencils here. Get them out and ready. I'm going to read it the first time and you're going to whisper read it the second time to yourself. Here we go. Rat snakes do not live in caves, but they sure do like to visit. Rat snakes slither through cave openings to look for food. Now what you're going to do is pause the video and you are going to reread this statement and take notes in the margins. I'm going to give you about 2 minutes to do that. The teacher is going to, and you might not even need the 2 minutes, the teacher is going to pause the video and you are going to now reread this and write in the margins. So go ahead, this is a short little paragraph here, so go ahead and do that quietly. If you get done early, just go back and start to reread some of the text. Okay, so you should have taken notes in the margin for a sneaky snake, and next is going to be the questions. But before we do that, we are actually going to go back and reread the entire text, okay? Because we've done this over a few days, it's going to be really difficult to remember everything, and we want to make sure that we are doing well. So I am going to be reading it and you should be following with your pencils. Now I'm going to move my notes over a little bit so I can read everything. Okay, so let's get your pencils ready, and remember you want to be paying attention so you know where to go back and look in your text for the answers. Remember, the texts are always in the answer, but we do have to go back and reread and think hard because sometimes we have to infer what the question is asking us. So let's reread. Caves are home to many different animals. Like any home, a cave suits the creatures that live in it. Some animals can survive only in a cave's unique ecosystem. An ecosystem is an environment in which certain plants and animals depend on each other to live. So, just what lives in caves. So, just like we learned in that paragraph that a cave is a place that creatures live, and an ecosystem is an environment where plants and animals depend on each other to live. So, remember, we're reading with our pencil. Let's read a blind find. You might see blind salamanders in caves, but they won't see you. Blind salamanders do not need sight. They live in the darkest parts of caves, in water or on land. They are able to catch food by feeling the movements of other animals. So I want you to think in your brains right now, what did you learn about salamanders? What did you write? Or, well, you would not have written in the margins because I showed this to you before, but think about what you would actually write about salamanders. Think of it in your head. You don't actually have to write. Okay, so let's read this caption. A cave is an empty space inside Earth. Its opening is usually on the side of a hill. Caves are filled with a lot of interesting things. What hangs out in caves? Going up or down. Remember, we are doing this at a level 0 with our pencils. When water mixes with calcium and drips inside caves, it hardens and builds up over time. That creates cone-shaped objects called stalactites and stalagmites. Stalactites hang from the ceiling. Stalagmites rise from the ground. Sometimes they meet and form columns. So remember, when it says when calcium and water mix, it makes like cone-shaped objects, and we know that they are called stalactites and stalagmites. Right now in your brains, I want you to think which ones rise from the ground. Think in your heads. Which ones come from the ceiling? We know that stalactites hang from the ceiling and stalagmites come from the ground. Let's keep reading. Many bats sleep in cave doorways. They fly out to find food. Some bats hibernate in caves during the winter. So we learned about what hibernating means, and if we look at the bottom, it means to pass the winter sleeping or resting. So we learned that bats hibernate. Let's go down to lots of legs. Millipedes like to chill out in the cool, damp middle sections of caves. They can have anywhere from 80 to 400 legs. Having so many legs helps them dig their way underground. So right now in your brains, I want you to think about where in the caves they live and why they have so many legs. Think in your brains right now. Okay. And the last paragraph we'll read is a sneaky snake. Rat snakes do not live in caves, but they sure do like to visit. Rat snakes slither through cave openings to look for food. So something that we learned here is that the rat snakes do not actually live in the caves, they just like to visit and go and look for food. So that's really important to remember. So now what we're going to do is I'm actually going to read these questions to you, boys and girls, and then you are going to go back and answer the questions by yourself. Now it's really important that you do not rush through this. For every question, I want you to read all of the choices and think about which would be the best answer, okay? Remember, you can always go back in the text and search for the answer, okay? So make sure that you're doing that because all of the answers are in the text. Now, if you happen to get done early, I want you to go back and reread the entire text. Check your answers, okay? Don't just say, oh yeah, they're done, they're right. I want you to actually go back and reread the entire text and make sure that your answers are actually right. No one should be sitting there not doing anything, okay? So I am going to read the questions to you and then you are going to get started. Remember, you're doing this at a level 0, okay? You're not going to be allowed to clean up and go to centers until the teacher knows that you really did work hard on this, okay? Now, if someone does need extra time and it's time for centers to start, you may still quietly work on this, okay? I do not want you to feel rushed, but we are going to take some time and answer this, okay? And the teacher knows how long I've set aside to do this, okay? So do not feel that you need to rush through this, but when it is time to clean up, if you still do need extra time, you can have the extra time. So I'm going to read the questions and then you are going to be able to get started, okay? So let's read the questions together and then I encourage you to go back and reread all of the questions and do them one at a time. So I'm just going to read the questions. Number 1, the main idea of this passage is. So remember, when you think about main idea, you're thinking about what the whole entire text is about, not just what's one thing that it said. What is the whole thing about, okay? So remember that. Number 2, a detail from this passage is, so remember when we talk about a main idea like a table, the main idea is the top, what the whole thing is about, and a detail is like one thing that it said in the text, okay? Just one thing that it said in the text. Number 3, blank, find food in caves. Okay, so you're either going to choose between bats, rat snakes. Both means that bats and rat snakes both find food in caves, and neither means none of these find food in caves. So I know that can be a little tricky, so let me go over it again. Blank, find food in caves. So that's saying that you'll either say just bats find food in caves, just rat snakes find food in caves. Both means, yeah, bats and rat snakes find food in caves, or no, neither bats or rat snakes find food in caves. Okay, so that's what that means. Number 4, it says, another detail from the passage is, remember, a detail is something that it said. And number 5 says, if you went into a cave, what do you think it would be like? Now, I don't want you to just imagine something, boys and girls. Just say, well, I think it would be cool, and I'd see a lot of things. I want you to think, what did the text talk about? What do you think you would see? How do you think it would feel? It talked about what an area of the cave feels like for a certain creature, okay? What do you think the temperature would feel like maybe in the middle of the cave, okay? So I do want you to use some evidence from the text, not just make up something, okay? So now you are going to go ahead and answer the questions by yourself at a level 0. I do want your folders to be up, okay? So go ahead and get your folders out now. And once the teacher sees that you're ready, you're going to begin, and remember, you're working on this until the teacher tells you to clean up. So if you get done early, I would go back and reread that, okay? Work hard.